Can you beat Baldur's Gate as a jack of all trades character while playing a solo honor mode one without any major cheese? Probably. I'm certainly gonna try. Some quick rules before we start the one. Since this one is linked to an achievement that I don't have yet, there will be no respecking. Also, I'm not going to use any illicit powers because I think they make the game too easy. Hopefully I won't regret this statement later. For our background, I went with Dark Urge. Astarion could also be a good choice for the extra 1d10 necrotic damage after you ascend, but I think the rewards you get for an evil Dark Urge one are still better, so I went with that. Also, if you play as Astarion, you are forced to start your run with the Rogue class, which is not a great starting class for such a run. Anyway, we are going to play as a Duergar for the advantage on saving throws against Charm and Paralyze. But more importantly, as we level up, we get a special enlarged spell that doesn't require concentration, which is great, as this allows us to greatly increase our damage output. And last but not least, we also will get a special invisibility spell that we can use in a finite amount. And also it never runs out, which is just absolutely broken. We start our build with the fighter class, as this class gives us proficiencies in all armor types and most weapons, which is going to be very important because we will switch our equipment around a lot. For our fighting style we will take archery, because I plan to use a certain bow that you all know as one of my main weapons. Looking at our attributes, strength, dexterity and constitution are the most important attributes for us, which is why we want to get them as high as possible. We set our constitution to 16, this will help us remain our concentration spells and it increases our survivability. Especially the extra survivability is very useful here, since we won't get a lot of HP from our level ups. Our dexterity we set to 17. This will allow us to get it up to 20 once we reach the last act by using the Hair and the Mirror of Loss. Having a high dexterity is very important for us to keep our initiative high, because especially later in this run, not going first can be very deadly for us. Our strength is just going to sit at the minimum value, as we are going to use strength potions to increase it. The remaining points we put into wisdom and charisma to help us pass the various checks you will always encounter in your runs. Alright, I already talked way too much again, so let us push forward and get this run going. At the beach we recruit Shadowheart, which will give us enough XP to get to level 2. At level 2 we are going to pick a class and a subclass you are not seeing very often. The War Domain Cleric. The War Domain Cleric will give us 3 War Priest charges that allow us to do a second attack with our bonus action. Very useful in various situations, as we will never get the extra attack feature. The only problem is that when you can do an attack with your bonus action, the game will force you to use this bonus action even if you have a normal action left to use. This means we need to be a bit careful with our action point economy and possibly adapt to the situation, but this should be fine. The War Domain Cleric also gives us 2 domain spells, Divine Favor and Shield of Faith. For the cantrips we take Resistance, Guidance and Light. The deity you choose is not important, but I'm going to choose Laduger, or however he is called, as this god will help you to fully pass the Necromancy of Thay. Coming to our spells, the only truly important spell here is Sanctuary, as this spell is a literal lifesaver. I use the strength potion for my camp supplies to skip the battle against the brains at the beach. At the top we take a helping hand for the road, and then intimidate a gnome by simply existing.
Oh yeah? Well,
we take the free XP and kill their last remaining clueless friend. And with that it's finally time for everyone's favorite grove fight. And surprisingly for once, no one died. Anyway, inside the grove we kill the bugbear assassin, convince Roland to stay, find some hidden stash, eat something else than Darth for the first time, buy strength and invisibility potions from Auntie, buy a +1 longbow from Damon, save Sasa, kill Sasa, befriend the bard, buy the blessed ring from Volo, save a child from a viper, and read a letter that was clearly meant for us. At level 3 we take the Warlock class. This class finally allows us to take the best cantrip in this game, Minor Illusion. As our Warlock subclass we take the Great Old One, to frighten our enemies whenever we crit, because I would like to increase our crit chance somewhere down the line. For our spells we take Hellish Rebuke and Hex. Hex being a very important and useful spell for us, as it increases our damage by 1d6 necrotic damage. And last but not least, since we hit level 3, we also get our first Duergar based spell. The Duergar Enlarge spell is a special enlarge spell that increases our weapon damage by 1d4, but unlike the normal enlarge spell, it doesn't require concentration. With the help of the shapeshifter mask from our camp supplies, we turn ourselves into a Drow, so we can safely walk through the Blighted Village and even get a bunch of free XP for it. Inside the Blighted Village we get the Haste Helm, a very useful item for us since as a Duergar our movement speed is rather low. We also save Barkos, which is one of the most important things we have to do in this village, because he can become a trader in the second act, who will sell us a lot of very useful items. Now we keep abusing our Drow form for a little longer to get a bunch of free XP inside the Goblin Camp. And we free Volo so we can finish his quest. Our next mission is to get the Necromancy book, so we kill all the undead guards one by one and then take what is rightfully ours. Next we head to Waukeen's West to save Councillor Floric. Not for any of the rewards she gives us, but for the Hamarhraft that you can loot from one of the chests inside the inn. The reason why I want this hammer is because it deals bludgeoning damage and I want to use it against Grym later on. Now, through all this traveling we are close to get to level 4, so we commit some murder and get the remaining XP we need. At level 4 we take the Rogue class for the sneak attacks and to increase our stealth and athletics. I know, I did it again. Old habits die hard. But you know, it had to be done. This is just how it is. Not my fault that her role is to die, but I promise, someday she will survive and one of my ones. Probably. Anyway, on the next day we make our way to the Underdark. To do that, we simply go into the spider cave and use Sanctuary to walk past everyone. We drink a Featherfall potion, take the Dark Amethyst for the Necromancy book, and down we go. In the Underdark we pick up Phalar Aluve, which is going to be one of our main melee weapons once we killed Grym. At the Myconid Colony we cure the Deep Gnome and buy the Caustic Band for the extra 2 acid damage. We then walk past the Duergar to get the Drow studded leather armor. We won't be using this armor for long, but for now it's still a good pickup. When you climb up here, be sure to have a way ready to turn yourself invisible, because if you didn't kill the Bulette yet, she will always show up here and try to kill you. And since we don't have the means to win this fight, I am just going to turn invisible and wait until she leaves again. Once we took the armor, we head to the Arcane Tower. You can just use invisibility and walk past all the arcane turrets, this way you are not risking anything. After you turned off the security system, you actually can kill the arcane turrets for a total of 160 XP. Now all that's left to do is to loot this entire place and then go back to the Myconid Colony and finish Omelium's quest. Once you finish this quest, you unlock him as a trader and he will sell you the boots of Stormy Clamour and the Pearl of Power Amulet. And before I forget it, let's read the Necromancy book. This should be a very easy pass with our chosen classes, and because of our evil god from our cleric class, we even can pass the last check rather easily, so we don't even have the long rest to remove the curse you would normally get for failing the last check. With that, it's time to kill the Duergar so we can progress to the Grymforge. Because of our high stealth skill, we actually can stealth assassinate them quite consistently, even when I actually would prefer to get the surprise attack. Technically, I could beat the entire game like this by simply using stealth armor and spells, and in the best case scenario, never even entering combat at all. But I'm not going to do that, because I find this quite cheesy and it would also invalidate the challenge of this one. At least for me. This doesn't mean I will never use stealth to my advantage, but I won't intentionally abuse it by completely leaning into it, if that makes sense. Anyway, we kill the remaining Duergar and take the ship to the Grymforge. Once we reach the Grymforge, we immediately fight our way towards the forge, by introducing everyone that stood in our way to this nice thing called gravity. Once we've done that, we just need to collect the mithril ore so we can forge our desired items. To get the mithril ore guarded by the methods, you can simply sneak past them. This works because they don't have a field of view and therefore can't detect you. Just be sure to stay as far away from the lava pit as you can, so they won't detect you when you destroy the mithril vein. And with that, we take one final long rest before the big fight and collect the Bliss Spores we bought from the Myconids for killing the Duergar. Before we start the fight against Grym, we need to do a lot of pre-buffing, since this is not an easy fight. To improve our survivability in case he hits us, we use False Light for more HP and Mirror Image to increase our AC. To increase our damage output, we use the Oil of Accuracy, Enlarge and of course Haste for the additional action point. To finish it all up, we use a Flying and an Invisibility Potion. The Invisibility Potion allows us to get a surprise attack against Grym, giving us one additional round to damage him. After my 3 hits, I'm thinking about if I want to attack him again on the next turn, but I ended up deciding against it. Because as you saw, I only had a 85% hit chance, even though I had the Oil of Accuracy, the Bliss Spores and Bless from the Bless Ring active. And considering I'm going to lose my Bless condition on the next turn, the chance that I'm going to miss one of my attacks is just too high. Because if Grym activates his legendary ability, he will gain 10 temporary HP and double his movement speed while they are present. This means if I can't remove his temporary HP, I'm unable to kite him below the hammer and I can't risk that. So I just skip my second turn and let him walk towards me. If you stand around this position, he should walk right beneath the hammer and stay there. Now when you do this strategy, you need to be a bit more careful now because they changed the hitbox of the hammer. It's not enough anymore to have him stay in the outer circle, instead he needs to stay in the inner circle or he won't get hit by the hammer. My position is actually not that good and I should have stayed more to the left, but I got a bit lucky and he just barely put his foot in the inner circle and I can hit him with the hammer. Now that the lava is gone, I use this moment to fly up and take the higher ground. It's important you only do this while there is no lava around, because the AI likes to walk into the lava when you tell your character to fly up here. From up here we can now hit Grym with the hammer again and take out most of the methods. Since the methods can't reach you up here, they will instead fly towards Grym and hold him in place beneath the hammer, so we can let the hammer fall on him for the final time and end this fight. The reason why I came here so early is because I wanted to forge the Adamantine Splint armor and the Adamantine shield. They both greatly increase our AC and the damage we take if we get hit, by reducing this damage and making us immune to critical hits. For killing Grym, we also get the Grymskull Helm, which might be a helm we use in the second act. At level 5 we take the Bard class. This class will give us a lot of utility spells, one of them being Longstrider, which honestly is a spell I desperately wanted, because you really feel the low movement speed you have as a dwarf compared to other races. On our 5th level we also get our second and final Duergar spell. This time we get an invisibility spell, which does require concentration, but it doesn't have a turn timer attached to it, so it never runs out. Also, you have infinite recasts of it as long as you are not in combat, where you can only use it once. But let's be honest, when you are using invisibility while you are in combat, 99% of the time you're going to disengage anyway. Even if you don't mean to and it just happens because you're solo. So this is not really a downside. Having acquired our armor, it's finally time to farm some hyena ears for some speed potions. Which we need a lot of for this one. And also to finally get one of our main range weapons for this one. In the fight against Flint, I simply use my movement speed, which I now finally have, to a long strider, to my advantage and just run from them. Taking them out one by one using my range attacks. And if you do it right, you even can get Flint to follow you up to the toll house and... Ma'am, if you would be so kind? Thank you. And with that we can go to the Zentium hideout and get everyone's favorite bow, the Titanstring. I don't think this bow needs any further introduction, right? With our new bow we head to the swamp. There we kill some methods and read a letter that lets us expose Kagha. We can kill her together with the other druids. Killing her is very important for basically any Dark Urge one, because if you kill her, she drops the Broodmother's Revenge amulet. And this amulet will increase your weapon damage by 1d6 poison damage whenever you are healed. This will work especially well with the cooked dark meat we can later get from the Goblin Camp, but more to that when we get there. With Kagha dead, we can now safely steal the idol and give it to Maul, who will give us the Ring of Protection. A ring I probably will never use in combat, but who knows, it's still a good ring that might become useful at some point. On our next long rest we meet Skelaritas Fell, our butler from our past and forgotten life. He congratulates us for the display of violence the other night, naturally, and rewards us with the Deathstalker Mantle, a cloak that will turn us invisible whenever we kill someone. Now, it's finally time to send Mentara to the Grove and then just kill the entire Goblin Camp. Because, you know, XP. Once you killed every single goblin in the camp, be sure to take the cooked Darven meat with you when you loot the place, if you are playing Dark Urge. Because as Dark Urge you can eat this meat and it will heal you, which means it will trigger your Broodmother's Revenge amulet. And the best part about it is that it doesn't even require an action or bonus action point to consume this meat, which means you can trigger this amulet whenever you need for free. Before we go to the Grove and help defend it against Mentara, we do a quick stop at the Blighted Village to kill Lump and his brothers. Killing Lump will give us the warped headband of intellect, which we later need to pass the Mirror of Loss in the third act. Before you trigger the cutscene to start the Grove fight, you want to get rid of all the explosive barrels on top of the wall to avoid any potential explosions. For the pre-buffs in this fight I went with the haste grenade that I wanted to throw on the ground, which did not happen, but unfortunately I did not notice that. Oh well. For my weapon buff I used the Oil of Sharpness and then heal myself for the blessing. Your first objective in the Grove fight when you are defending it is always to destroy the barrels, so that the Orc can't throw them up the wall and you don't have to deal with any goblins on the wall that could prevent you from shooting or in the worst case even push you off the wall. After that you just shoot them all down one by one, starting with the spiders that are on top of the wall. The fight itself actually got pretty close because I was too greedy to use a speed potion. sorry Zephyr, but you are just not worth the speed potion to save you.
There's a parasite in that corpse.
For the fight against the Hag, we leave one of her servants alive should she waste the first turn to summon them, which gives us an extra turn to kill her before she multiplies herself. To prepare ourselves, we use Sea Invisibility, and then we use Enlarge, Shriek and Divine Favor to increase our damage. We are using Divine Favor over Hex, even though Hex technically has a higher damage increase for us, because using Hex against the Hag would trigger her legendary ability, and we don't want that. To finish our pre-buffs, we use Invisibility and Jump Down. As you might saw, I also threw a haste grenade, but I was too slow with my pre-buffs, so it ran out. Should have just used it after I finished my pre-buffs and not before. Anyway, before we attack her, we take a quick short rest to heal ourselves, which will trigger both our Blesswing and Poison Amulet. Then we start the fight using a sneak attack. She will get the first move against us, but this is not a problem, because she is going to summon her guards, since we left one of them alive, essentially wasting her first turn, and we can safely attack her.
Come, darlings. Help, Auntie.
On her next turn, she will then multiply herself, which again is actually good for us, because this means she again won't attack us. But of course, this also means we need to take her down this turn, or the next turn could be very deadly for us. Anyway, our bless condition ran out, so I used the dove meat to get it up again, so we have the highest possible hit chance we can have against her. With that, I just take 2 normal shots against her, putting her below 20 HP, which is the desired amount we want to have to get the Hamarhraft. At the end of my turn, I'm just going to use Sanctuary, because my speed potion is running out next turn and I don't want to waste another one, just to kill her one remaining guard. Next turn the Hag surrenders and we let her keep Mariana to not take any risk of losing the Hamarhraft. For the Hamarhraft we take the +1 dexterity, mainly to increase our initiative. Back at the Grymforge, we side with the Duergar slavers to kill Nia and more importantly to save Barkus again, so we have him as a trader in the second act. In the fight against Nia, your first objective is to take out the Mind Masters, to avoid having your allies turn on each other or even worse, lose control of your own character. After that you still don't want to focus your attacks on Nia, because Nia is only hard to take out, but not a very good damage dealer, so he is not really a big threat. Instead you want to focus your attacks on the enemy Duergar so you quickly thin their numbers. This obviously will greatly reduce the damage your allies take and get them to attack Nia. And if they end up killing themselves because of it, even better, more loot for us. Once we killed Nia, we persuade Wilfra to let the gnome slaves go and then tell Barkus to go rest at our camp. This is very important, because if you don't tell him to rest at your camp, he will not show up at Last Light Inn as a trader in the second act. At level 6 we take the Sorcerer class. This class will give us a bunch of cantrips, which I actually don't care about. I only care about the spells we can get. There I'm going to take Shield to even further increase our AC and therefore also our survivability. I am also going to take Magic Missile simply for the guaranteed kill on some low HP enemies. For the subclass I'm going to take the Draconic Bloodline with the White Ancestry. The Armour of Archetypes will increase our HP and even deal some cold damage when we take damage. It's not much, but every bit helps. Before we enter the crash, we first collect these 3 ceremonial weapons we need to get the Morning Lord's Radiance buff. But we are actually not going to activate it just yet, because this buff only lasts for the next long rest, and I want to make sure that I still have this buff when I'm going to fight against the Inquisitor. Inside the crash we have our first trader that is going to sell us the strongest types of special arrows, which we will all buy. This trader also sells us the Knife of the Undermountain King, a weapon I would like to use in the last act to increase my crit chance. But since this weapon is a guaranteed drop when you kill her, we don't need to buy it. Anyway, it's time for our last long rest for the first act, so that we can finally activate the Morning Lord's Radiance buff. This buff will be very helpful for us to kill the entire crash. One thing I noticed when fighting the crash is how much of a difference the lack of extra attack makes. Especially against stronger enemies, I feel like I'm forced to use a speed potion if I don't want to take the risk of getting hit. And at least against the Githyanki, this is a risk I am not willing to take if I can avoid it. So I ended up using 2 speed potions and even all of my shriek charges while taking out the crash. Doesn't feel amazing, but better this than dying. Once we killed the trader, she will drop us the knife of the Undermountain King and the Amulet of Branding. The Amulet of Branding is a very interesting item as it removes your enemy's resistance to a type of physical damage, or even makes them vulnerable if they don't have resistance to chosen physical damage type. The only problem is that this debuff only lasts for 1 attack, so the usage of this item is very limited. But still, I might end up using it, so I will keep it for now. Before we start the fight against the Inquisitor, we use invisibility to steal the strange conduit ring inside the chest behind him. This ring will increase our weapon damage by 1d4 psychic damage while we are concentrating on a spell, which we pretty much always do, so you could say this is a permanent damage increase. Now for once I'm actually not going to attack him, but instead talk to him in Vlakiv. I am also going to accept their quest because I want the perma blessing you will get after you talk to your tree visitor. Before we leave the Astral Prism again, we switch Phalar Aluve with the Knife of the Undermountain King, since we already used all of our Shriek charges, and having a higher crit chance for the upcoming fight can be very useful. Now, we pre-buff ourselves using Enlarge, Mirror Image and Haste. Once we are in combat, we use the cooked Darth Meat to trigger the buff of our Poison Amulet. Together with all the other buffs, this puts the damage of our bow to a respectable amount. We use our arrows of many targets to take out both of the Githyanki Ardents in the first turn, while also dealing damage to the Inquisitor. On the next turn we will do the same thing again, which already reduced the Inquisitor to half-life, even though we haven't done a single direct attack on him yet. Yes, this is the big downside of the Deathstalker Mantle. While it's amazing when fighting larger groups of weaker enemies, it's an absolute nightmare in boss fights. But it's my own fault really. After all, I didn't unequip it before starting this fight. Oh well, we re-engage combat by attacking the last remaining warrior and finish him off using an arrow of many targets. This time unfortunately we were unable to deal any passive damage to the Inquisitor, because his swords blocked the arrow. This time the Deathstalker Mantle actually helps us out, since all of our buffs were about to run out. Now we wait until all his summons disappear, so we won't get overrun when we attack him again. Once they are all gone, we throw a speed potion on the ground and initiate the fight for the final time. Funny enough, he actually got the first move against us, but he didn't do anything, so it didn't matter. We then collect the speed potion we threw on the ground, while also intentionally triggering an opportunity attack to remove his parry reaction. Now we cast Hex on him and trigger our Poison Amulet to boost our damage. All that's left to do at this point is to play hit and run with him. Since we are a lot faster than him, he will not be able to reach us. And for the case it ever gets close due to his summons, we can always teleport away.
your senses. Now leave, before the others come for us.
Thank you for watching. I honestly don't have anything else to say, so that's all. See you soon.